Hello, everybody. The sun's out, which is so exciting. So I hope this afternoon you guys are out and about. Hopefully in the sunshine, because it is quite nice to actually finally not have any rain. So I'm glad you guys have seen that our one and only Ivan has actually started to remember a little bit about his past after all this time that he's had in captivity. And it makes me wonder sometimes, do you think that, when we go to the zoo and things like that, I often think of those orangutans that are in the zoo and wonder if they remember where they came from. I know a lot of them will have actually been born in the zoo. Wonder how many are actually born outside of the zoo and then come in. I don't know. There's sort of a question, a pondering or a wonder. So, here we go, my friends. Well, in my new life as a human, I was well looked after. I ate lettuce leaves, and I also had this yummy stuff that was like a dressing, and they called it Thousand Island, which I thought was quite funny. And I also had caramel apples and popcorn with butter, and then my belly got really, really big, and I think that it got too big. But hunger-like food comes in many shapes and colours. At night, when I was lying alone in my pyjamas that had Winnie the Pooh on them, I felt really hungry for the skilled touch of someone to groom my fur, and for the cheerful grunts of a play fight, or for the easy safety of my nearby troop foraging through the shadows. I didn't have any of that in my new home. I also remember that my sister Tag had gone, and I told myself to just stop thinking about the jungle and just remember that I was where I was, and I was safe, and I was well fed, and people really loved me. However, I sometimes still lay awake wishing for the warmth of another just like me, asleep in a high nest of tender, tender leaves. I like having sips of soda pop because it all pickles up in my nose, and sometimes it just gets poured in my mouth like a bubbling waterfall. But every now and then I long to search for a tender stalk of just a root or a vegetable or a stick. I feel like the taste of mango is just out of reach. I never get mangoes anymore. One day, Helen, who's Mac's wife, came home with something large and flat wrapped in brown paper. "Oh, look what I bought you today," she said excitedly as she tore off the paper. "A painting to go over the living room couch." "Fruit in a bowl," Mac said with a shrug. "Big deal." This is fine art. It's called Still Life," Helen explained, "and I personally think it's lovely." I dash over to examine the painting, looking at all the wonderful shapes and colours. "See," Mac's wife said, "Ivan likes it." "Ivan likes to roll up poop and throw it at squirrels," Mac said. I couldn't take my eyes off the apples and bananas and grapes in the picture. They looked so real and like I could just put my hand out and eat them. I reached out and I touched a grape, and Helen slapped my hand. "Bad boy, Ivan, don't touch." She jerked her thumb at Mac. "Honey, go get the hammer and a nail, and I want to put this picture up." While Mac and Helen were busy in the living room, I actually wandered into the kitchen, and there was a cake covered in thick chocolate frosting sat on the counter. I love cake. In fact, I really love cake. But it wasn't eating I was thinking about. It was actually painting. The frosting on the cake sort of peaked and dipped like waves on a tiny pond, and it looked rich and gooey and dark and smooth. It actually reminded me of mud, and that was my name in the jungle, and I used to like painting with mud. So I scooped up a handful of frosting, and then I scooped up another one, and I headed to the refrigerator door because it was just perfect, an empty white canvas for me to paint on. The frosting wasn't as easy to work with as jungle mud. It was much stickier, and of course all I wanted to do was really eat it. But I kept at it. I scraped off every last bit of that frosting, and I also ate just a little bit of the cake too. I don't remember what I was trying to paint. Maybe it was a banana. I don't think it was a banana, but maybe it was a banana. I suppose I knew I was going to get into trouble, but I didn't really care. But at that moment, I just kept going because I wanted to make something, anything the way I used to. It was so exciting. I was an artist again, using the icing on the fridge door. It was funny though, because I soon learnt that humans can screech even louder than monkeys. You should have heard the screeching that went on. It was even worse than the screeching that goes on in Mrs. P's house sometimes with her girls. And after that, I was never allowed in the kitchen again. Back in those days, the Big Top Moor was much smaller, and it had a pony ride and a wooden train that bustled around the parking lot and a few weird-looking parrots and a really awful, grumpy spider monkey. But when Matt bought me a baby gorilla and he dressed me in a tuxedo to the mall, everything changed. People came from far and wide to have their pictures taken with me. They bought me blocks and a toy guitar, and they actually let me sit on their laps. Once I even held a baby in my own hands. She was small and slippery, and bubbles sort of flowed from her lips like happens with babies. And she squeezed my finger, and her bottom was all puffy with this really weird white padding, and her legs sort of stuck out from it at weird angles. I found that very strange. I made a face at her and she made a face, and I grunted and she grunted. I was so afraid she would fall that I squeezed her tightly, and that's when her mum yanked her away, so I didn't know why she did that. I was just trying to hold on tight. I wonder if my mummy ever wondered about dropping us. We always just held on, but that's easier to do when your mum's got lots of fur on her back. I wonder if your mummies have lots of fur on their backs. I don't see what mummies have on their backs because they've always got these weird things always all over them. They call them clothes. I've decided human babies are an ugly lot, but their eyes are like our babies' eyes. Too big for their faces, and actually too big for the world. One day, after many weeks of loud talking, Helen packed a bag and slammed the front door and never came back. I don't know why. I never know the why of humans. That night I slept with Mac in his bed, so that was quite good fun. My old nests were woven of leaves and sticks and shapes like his bathtub, cool green cocoons. Mac's bed, like mine, was flat and hot, without sticks or stars above it. Still, he made a sleeping sound like the rumble my father used to make when all was well, a sound from deep inside his body, but sometimes that sound was really loud, and it seemed to come out of the holes in his nose. I wonder what that was. Turn the page, Mrs. P. Mac grew really, really quiet, and I grew bigger. I became what I was meant to be, too large for chairs, too strong for hugs, too big for human life. I tried to stay calm and to move gracefully, and I really did eat my best to eat carefully, but human ways are hard to learn, especially when you're not a human. When I saw my new domain, I was thrilled, and who wouldn't have been? It had no furniture to break, no glasses to smash, and no toilets to drop Mac's keys in. That was a little tricky thing I used to do, and I thought it was really funny. Mac didn't find it very funny. I even had a tyre swing. I was relieved to finally have my own place. Somehow I didn't realise I'd be here for quite so long. I didn't think I'd be here for as long as I have been. Now I drink Coca-Cola, eat old apples, and watch reruns on TV, but many days I forget what I'm supposed to be. Sometimes I forget, am I a human or am I a gorilla? Humans have so many words, more than they really truly need. Still, they have no name for what I am. Am I animal or human? I've lived in a human world, but I'm still an animal. I think I'm a human, but they put me in a cage. I find it really weird. Ruby is finally asleep, and I watch her chest rise and fall. Bob too is snoring, just like Mac used to. My mind is still racing. For perhaps the first time ever, I've actually been remembering. It's an odd story to remember, I have to admit. My story has a strange shape. It's sort of got a really slow beginning and an endless middle. I count all the days I've lived with humans. Gorillas count as well as anyone, although it's not particularly useful skill to have in the wild to be able to count. I've forgotten so many things, and yet I always know precisely how many days I've been in my domain. I take one of the magic markers Julia gave me and I make an X, a small one, in my painted jungle wall. I make more X's and more. I make an X for every day of my life with humans. My marks look like this: X, 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 X. The rest of the night I mark the days, and when I'm done, my wall looks like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of X's. And so on until there are 9,876 X's marching across my wall like a parade of ugly insects. It's almost morning when I hear steps, and it's Mac. He has a sharp smell. It's not very nice, and he can't seem to walk straight. He stands next to my domain, and his eyes are all red. He is staring out the window at the empty parking lot. "Ivan, my mate," he mumbles. "Ivan." He presses his forehead against the glass. "We've been through a lot, you and me." So, I wonder what's going to happen now with poor old Mac. I think poor old Mac's feeling a bit low on it. I think he's thinking that things are not going very well for him and the Big Top Mall. All right, my lovelies, tomorrow is Fabulous Friday. So I look forward to seeing you all. And don't forget, we've got the great sandwich making competition, and we've also got our fun family quiz night. So I look forward to seeing you all, my lovely Zoomers. Sleep tight, gorgeous people, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.